Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us again for another JBDC Virtual Biz Zone. This morning, we are so excited because we have Super Sue with us this morning. A lot of you don't know Super Sue, but I know Super Sue. And Super Sue is Suwannee Caine. Super Sue is a marketing strategist and a communication specialist. And she's going to be talking to us this morning about leveraging brand value. And just to tell you a little bit about Super Sue, we're going to call her Super Sue because that's who she is. She's a super. And you'll find out why she's super while she's doing her presentation. Very bubbly personality. All right, so she's described by a simple acronym, SUE, super, unadulterated energy. She's imaginative, vibrant, and dynamic. She has so much experience having worked at Grace Kennedy, Heineken, Gleaner Company. She's fluent in Spanish. She's skilled as a coach, trainer, public speaker, and moderator. And she's going to tell you so much more about herself. But as I said, she is going to be talking to us this morning about leveraging brand value. As usual, we are going to be taking your questions. She will tell you how that will be done, but feel free to drop something in the chat every now and again to let her know that you are still there, that you're with her, you're enjoying the presentation, and we look forward to your questions during and after the presentation. So it's over to you, Sue.
Thank you so much, Sansia. Can you hear me clearly?
I am hearing you loud and clear.
Fantastic. Let's just see if we can get our presentation up on the screen. Are we seeing the presentation now?
Yes, the presentation is there. I can see it.
All right. While I'm in presentation mode, Sansia, I can't see the chat. So I'm going to depend on you to guide me along.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm right here with you.
Thanks a lot, Sansia, and thanks for having me. Thanks to JBDC for inviting me to be a part of their Biz seminar series. I think it's a fantastic initiative that you've done. So kudos to the team at JBDC. So this morning, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And that's everything marketing. It's about leveraging brand value. And specifically, as we talk about leveraging brand value, we're talking about the MSME sector, or micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, who I'm sure many of you in this group are a part of. So it's my pleasure to be here today to talk to you. Let me tell you a little bit about my story. Sansia alluded to this a little earlier on. I have had 15 years in business, both in marketing and sales, commercial overall. And she told you about some international and local powerhouse brands that I have worked with. My journey has seen me taking these kinds of brands, in some cases very mature, in other cases emerging, and in some cases even struggling brands, almost on the decline. And I have worked assiduously to carry them through to points of success, points of growth, re-energizing them, stabilizing them. A part of my story also involves molding people, because for me, leadership is a key component in leveraging your own brand. And I've worked with persons generally between the ages of 18 to 30 and helped them into their current careers of choice. I am proud to declare that 100% of my mentees have become successful in their careers or have even gone on to start their own businesses and are doing quite well, both in Jamaica and across the world. I'm inspired by persons who I see also leverage their brand value. And on the screen, you will see one such person who does inspire me, the CEO and founder of Amazon. And many of you may be familiar with this statement he made once, where he says, your brand is what other people say about you when you are not in the room. This is so important as we begin to understand this thing called brand. For me, your brand is what people think, what they feel, what they say about you, and by extension, your business. and whatever product or service you have to offer. It all starts with your story. And we're going to be talking about that later on in this presentation. So we start here on the premise that each participant on this call is an MSME or an aspiring business owner, which means you already have a product or service that you offer, which comprise the identity of your brand. In the session later on this afternoon, you'll be learning about the power of your logo. So we won't go into that bit here, even though that's a part of brand value too. That'll be covered at 1 o'clock. But next stop here on this journey is to determine your brand strategy in the marketplace that you serve. Every small or medium business should make deliberate decisions about their marketing strategy. Because what happens is that the complexity of strategy sometimes can leave you wondering which way to turn and how to allocate your limited resources. Without a sound foundation, you'll have trouble creating anything of value. That's just the truth. So in this presentation, we're going to load you up on understanding and leveraging brand value as a part of your strategy. It is important to note this, the sound foundation that is necessary to create something of value. So let's begin. We want to first understand this thing called brand positioning. What is that? If you look on the image on the screen, you will notice that there are a number of brands that constitute the mind of any consumer. They're inevitably not only loyal to one brand, but they may be loyal to multiple brands in the same industry or across industries. So you see here, the mind might be consumed with an Apple technology or a Coca-Cola beverage, or it may want to choose Nike as its sports brand of choice. Again, your brand is what you show, what you say, and how you are perceived. So there are a lot of bright sparks in this room today, as those who completed the pre-webinar quiz would have seen this was the first question. And I say lots of bright sparks today because I'm happy to say that on that question, we have about a 90% average score, which means most people understand brand at the very minimum. But positioning a brand is another matter altogether. And it's defined as the conceptual place you want to own in the mind of the consumer, the benefits you want them to think of when they think of your brand. Equibrand Consulting, which is a global firm, has defined brand positioning as this, and is one of the leading global consultation firms on defining brand equity and brand positioning. Now, in defining a brand's positioning, it's useful to think of the following questions and components. Who is your target? What is or are their key points of difference? And what are the reasons to believe? We're going to dissect this in just a little moment. But marketing itself continues to be a challenge. There is a report known as the MailChimp Business Marketing Trend Report, and it gives some interesting statistics. It says that 62% of small business marketing decision makers agreed that they want to try new things and adhere to current best practices, but they simply don't have the time to figure out what those best practices are and how to implement them. So therefore, it's no surprise that just about 31% of these small business owners cite marketing as a challenge. I want to direct you to a company known as Cruise Control. I'll be speaking to some of the work that Kathy Cruz has done. She is a CEO and also a digital marketing strategist, which in this day and age, especially for small and medium business owners, is really crucial. But time and lack of resources continue to hinder small businesses. And many don't particularly like doing marketing themselves, nor do you have a lot of experience with it. But very few small business owners are able to outsource their marketing And so it takes time to break down the walls and realize, listen, it's not as hard as you think. And if you take it step by step, as you would take care of your home, you might just about get it done. As you go about cleaning your home, room by room, dusting out, the old cobwebs, repositioning the furniture, adding some new sprucey things to the house, bringing new life to your spaces, it's much the same way that you can take the approach of marketing to your business. So let's talk about some foundation pillars of your marketing strategy. First, we want to talk about how to define your target market. You want to do a couple things at the very outset, right? Look at who your current consumer or customer base is, especially if you're already in business, okay? This doesn't apply clearly if you're just about starting up. You have to define who you want your current customer to be. But once you're in business, you want to look at who is really buying your product or subscribing to your service. Who are your current customers? What do they buy from you? You then want to also check out your competition. You want to look at what it is they're doing and what it is you're doing. And you want to analyze your product or service in a way that allows you to understand the benefits it has for your consumer, your target consumer. You also want to consider the strategic and specific set of persons that form that target market, whether they buy from you because of niche or they buy from you because you provide a particular source of a product or service that they want on a regular basis. There are a couple of things that you have to break out in your target market strategy. You have to look at the psychographics, you have to look at the demographics, and you have to look at the behavioral. The demographics essentially speaks to the age, gender, occupation, education that make up a demographic in any product or service that you offer. And that's fairly straightforward. The behavioral talks about their attitudes and how they feel about your product or service, their particular purchase pattern, their interaction with your brand, even their status as a user. The psychographic targeting speaks to the values they hold, the beliefs they have, what type of personality they have, and does your brand personality match theirs or complement theirs? What's their lifestyle? Are they young, old? Demographic. Are they of a particular belief system, religious or otherwise? Are they male, female? Do they have the purchase power to buy a premium product or not? These are some of the things you want to take into consideration as you dissect your target market strategy. Then you move to your key points of differentiation, otherwise known as your differentiation strategy. This is an approach that businesses develop by providing customers with something unique, something very different, something distinct from anything the competitors are offering in the marketplace. And this is so important, especially today, especially when there's a lot of things looking and sounding the same. And I'm going to come back to that later on in the presentation. So you have to strategically position and you have to take very strategic actions. It's all about a competitive advantage, offering something unique. The very word brand means to dissect the existing, what is in the commonplace market, and present something that stands apart. It has to have a core messaging. And of course, we just spoke about positioning. Now, there are different types of differentiation strategies. There's the horizontal, there's the vertical, and there's the mixed. Basically, the horizontal differentiation refers to any type of differentiation that is not associated with quality or price. So these can be offered, these different types of products actually offer the same thing, pretty much, but at same price points, but they're different products. A good example of this is Pepsi and Coke. What separates them? I know our Jamaican people will say that Pepsi is sweeter, so it's Pepsi country, but it's Coke internationally. And truth is, they're both carbonated beverages, dark in color, have pretty much the same taste profile with a few differences, right? So that's an example of horizontal differentiation. You get to vertical differentiation, which in contrast to horizontal, they are extremely dependent on price. Under the vertically differentiated product line, the price points and marks of quality are different. There is a general understanding that if the options were the same price, there would be a clear winner for the best. So a good example of this is the value brand liquid laundry detergent that you buy, Great Value, for example, versus Tide. Two different price points offering on the same product line. Mixed, also known as simple differentiation actually, funny enough, refers to differentiation based on a combination of almost horizontal and vertical approach. And a good example of this is the car industry. You may have cars offered on the same price point and in the same class, but they're different. For example, Nissan and Toyota, and the various different cars that they have or SUVs that they offer, but at different price points. An example of the mixed differentiation. On the note of competitive differentiation strategy, successful companies, ladies and gentlemen, they tend to focus primarily on one area of differentiation that it cannot afford to sacrifice, do or die. You get to an exceptional company level, the Grace Kennedys of this world, when you can manage multiple areas of differentiation successfully. But as young, aspiring business owners, you want to stay away from what in marketing we call the no-fly zone. In there, you will find the memories of bankrupt companies that tried to give away everything for nothing in order to differentiate. And those don't last very long. So a couple of ways to separate yourself from the pack, to offer differentiated advantages. You want to disrupt and amaze. You want to be remarkable. You want to create your market niche, and you want to communicate these advantages. There's a lot of talk about creating a buzz, but there's some other things that are also important. If you're the first in the category, that's something to say for differentiation. If you're the latest in the category, same so. If you're the hottest trend, you definitely want to create a buzz around that. And then there's some companies that choose to talk about the leadership of their business as a key component of their differentiation strategy. And that's, of course, when you get to medium and larger businesses. A lot of companies like to talk about their heritage, that they're truly a Jamaican company, you know, offering specific products that are for and by Jamaicans. And of course, your customer experience is another thing you like to talk about as a differentiation. This one can get really tricky. Lots of people talk about their customer experience, but really are not able to deliver 100% of the time on that customer experience. So that is one to be really careful of. So let's now examine brand leveraging. A brand leveraging strategy uses the power of an existing brand name to support a company's entry into a new but related product category. So you're already in the market, you're already running your business, right? But you now want to extend your product line, whether it's makeup or it's jewelry and accessories. You want to come out with some new and different things. But the power of an existing brand name, which is also called your brand equity, is that value premium that a company generates from a recognizable name when compared to the generic value brand, as we spoke about Great Value a moment ago. For those of you who answered that question, well done. We also got a 90% average score on this question. Brand leveraging communicates valuable product information to consumers about new products. And generally, consumers maintain a consistent brand perception just about until they're disappointed. So they're going to look to your brand or your product as they would have looked to the originals that they loved. And if the new line, new extension, new SKU does not hold true to what they expect of your brand, they're going to be disappointed. And so you have to ensure you're truly, truly careful with brand leverage. There's some brands that are able to create a lot of different types of product lines within the brand portfolio. Coffee brands like Mr. Coffee, for example, does this very well. They make coffee makers, and they use the strength of that to not only have coffee beans, but coffee machines that can run in pretty much a lot of locations worldwide, particularly in America, right? But brand leveraging is really important because one, it gives you the opportunity to introduce new products. And because of that familiarity, there's that instant recognition. And that instant recognition has a number of advantages. I'm going to come to those in a minute. Consumers generally prefer to have an experience with a brand that they're comfortable with. Oftentimes, we're not very adventurous souls, generally. And for those that decide to go out on a limb, they will try very cautiously, and they're probably not prepared to spend a whole lot to do so. So this is something that you need to take into consideration. Also, very important to note, once you're going to launch products in different categories, the crux of the successful branding strategy is that they are not to compete for market share. This is really, really important, okay? And so you want to follow examples of companies like, if we look at one of the popular brands in pens and pencils, Bic, for example, strong brand name in that category, had no problem entering into other categories like disposable razors, which is fairly popular and doing quite as well. So even though it has absolutely nothing to do with pens and pencils, the disposable razors also hold their own place in the Bic brand line. And this is a kind of really key example of how you can make brand leveraging work for you. So we spoke about advantages. If you are on a website, there is a display of your brands. At the retail level, there is a shelf space. In the media, you might want to put it in the newspaper. The more products you have, the more opportunities you have, one, to make a sale, two, to show the strength of your brand, and three, as Jamaicans would say, things are going for you, right? There's a lot happening when you start to extend your brand line. It speaks positively to your growth without you having to say anything for yourself. So that's a key advantage. Then there is the cost of introducing a secondary line, which generally is less than introducing an independent new line because you have a smaller investment to make in brand development and advertising that can capitalize on the portfolio of products. And that's why large companies tend to spend quite a bit of time on this and in ensuring that they are able to maximize their marketing budgets. When you get there at a later time, you will see the cost-benefit analysis here. A full line range permits the coordination of offerings. So you launched in makeup powder, you're going to extend into lipsticks and gloss and eyeshadows and pencils and all kinds of different product lines to complement the makeup portfolio. You may even go into makeup removal care products or facial toners because those complement the space and gives greater coordination. What's that good for? Brand promotions. When you marry products that work, chances are you get some additional money in the coffers because consumers see the value in taking one product and another complementary product in the line at a promotional discounted price. And lastly, a greater number of products can increase the efficiency of manufacturing and distribution. Now, this doesn't happen all the time, but if you are able to leverage manufacturing costs utilizing the same plants across the world, in the same country, products can run on the same line, but at different times, you may just be able to increase your efficiency ratios. And so these are a couple of key things that I'd like you to digest as you begin to understand brand leveraging. So I had the privilege about a year ago of doing an executive masterclass here in Jamaica when Prof. Kevin Keller came out. Brilliant mind, I tell you, has a lot to teach us and has been doing this marketing thing for a long time. Here he says in this quote, "You don't spend 10 years appealing to middle-aged women and then suddenly turn around and start trying to connect with 25-year-old women. You're almost certainly going to alienate the people who have an investment in your brand from the beginning. And there's no guarantee you're going to be successful with the new group." Now, there are arguments for and against this, but truth be told, keeping consistent with your brand is important for its longevity. Take a listen to this short snippet that he had to say some 7 years ago that are perhaps even more relevant today.
Hi, I'm Kevin Keller, Professor of Marketing at the Tech School of Marketing. Just want to spend a couple minutes talking to you about value in marketing in today's economy.
Suwannee, see how much higher you can turn that up. We're not hearing it so well. See if it can go any higher.
What kind of value I'm creating.
Okay, let me see if I can stop it and start it back. Thanks for that, Sancio. I'm not sure if I can get it up anymore. Let me see.
David, can you provide any assistance with that? To let the sound come in a little bit louder.
Morning, she'll have to stop her screen sharing, then start it back again. And there's an option to share video, audio.
You heard that, Suwannee?
Where do I share video, audio, David?
All right, you'd have to stop sharing your screen and then start it back again. And there'll be an option at the bottom that says share video audio, computer audio, I should say. So you'd have to stop it and start it back again. The video is being played from a media player or something like that?
Yes, I believe so. It's embedded in the file.
Okay.
I just turned up the volume. I see a sign here that says, "Do you want to stop cloud recording?"
No. So when you click on share screen, there's two little options at the bottom of that window.
Share computer sound?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's see if this works.
Hi, I'm Kevin Keller, Professor of Marketing at the Tech School at Dartmouth.
Does that work?
Just want to spend a couple minutes talking to you about value in marketing in today's economy. Probably one of the most talked about topics and probably one of the most important topics. But one actually that's important not just these times, but in all times. And that's to really understand what kind of value am I creating for consumers and how does that value compare to what competitors are doing. And the key to understanding value is it's not just the money that people pay and what they get out of it directly in terms of the performance and functional benefits. It's much more broader than that. It really is kind of what I have to give for what I get. And what I give is not just money. It's time, it's energy, it's thought. And what I get is not just what the product does. I get peace of mind maybe with the right product. So I think one of the challenges in all marketing is to make sure that value gets framed the right way so consumers appreciate what you're giving them. And that's especially true if you're a premium product, because you're always susceptible to competitors saying, compare and save. And what they want you to do, or what they want the consumer to do, is to compare on the basis of the functional benefits. And that may not be the whole story at all. There's a whole emotional side. There are other aspects to what you have to offer your customers and your consumers that go beyond that. So in understanding value, it's really take a broad view of that and really understand what exactly do you get and what do you give consumers. Cultivate that, make sure you maximize that, and then most of all, communicate that, because they need to know that. And it may not be obvious from the product or the packaging or the brochure or what that is. Clearly, this is an issue now in a slowed down economy where people are being much more careful about what they spend money on. They've got to see the broader value concept, I think, in their minds is really, really crucial. So my advice these days, but in all times, is to be thinking about value, maximizing value, and really understanding it in the broadest possible sense, and then relentlessly delivering on that over time. So thank you very much. Good luck.
So you can see that Prof. Kevin Keller, he has quite a bit to teach on this concept known as brand value. And truth be told, you have to do exactly as he says. It's going to be about developing the brand that consumers want. We're going to talk about that in just a moment, and communicating it in the right and most coherent way that connects with the consumer. All right, that has been a mouthful for the last half an hour. At this moment, we're going to take an intermission break to facilitate any questions or comments that may have come up in the chat. Sancio?
I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, but I want to invite persons, anyone who has a question, you can either raise your hand, or if your mic is not working, you can just type it in the chat at this point. Anybody? Has Super Sue been crystal clear so far? Any comments, any observations, anything? Right, so I'm not seeing anything at this point.
Awesome.
So,
okay, well.
So you can continue.
Thank you, Sancio.
Shalik Campbell said, so far so good. Thanks, Super Sue.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Shalik. So I am trying to go through what is a very content-rich topic, ladies and gentlemen, very content-rich. There is a whole lot of scholarly research and articles and sites that you can take a look at on your own time, and when you're able to do some extra reading. Because in this day and age, especially now with what is going on with COVID, you kind of want to upskill. You want to do the due diligence of what Stephen Covey calls sharpening the saw, which is to ensure that you have the right tools, knowledge, and experience too, to be able to take your product, your service into the global marketplace and lead in a fantastic way, so that we are reading about you in 10 or 15 years time. So without further ado, I'm going to go into the next section of the presentation now. So this is going to be a little bit more now about what I want you to take away, some key lessons and some skills that you've got to develop. But before we do that, I alluded to this pre-webinar quiz, which I've called the Mastermind Quiz. And here are the results. Out of 40 responses that we got on this quiz, clap yourselves, a lot of you took the quiz, and we were happy to see such a high participation rate. Thank you for your time. You took about 2 minutes to do the quiz. So what's important for me is also that it's not long. It doesn't take too much of your time, because I respect that we're all busy people. But how did you perform? Well, as you see, collectively, not too bad. about 73% on average was the score. We did get a couple 100%. Well done. You're ready for the road, right? But if you scored in the 40s or the 50s on this quiz, it's our hope that your being here today helped to address some of these questions in a meaningful way. And certainly the lessons to come will just drive that home for you so that you can use these in your everyday marketing life journey, okay? What I found was the toughest question, where I saw about an average of 30%, was the question on the top 5 ranked brands. And for those of you who took it, you would have gotten your results immediately. So you'd have seen that the correct answer was Coca-Cola. It seems as if we need to sharpen the saw on what's happening with our brands across the world. And what's important is that because the top 5, 10 ranked brands globally is an ever-changing thing, savvy marketers have to keep up with the trends and what's moving the needle. So keep doing that. Keep sharpening the saw, you know? The best question that was answered was the one that said, my brand promise is my vision of what my brand must be and do for my consumers. And that's definitely true. So congrats to 100% of you who answered that question correctly. So let's really dive deep into leveraging brand value, the fundamentals. There are 5 lessons that I'm going to go through with you this morning. And each of these come with some requisite skills. Each of these are favorite quotes of mine, and they're things that are really deep, embedded, that we need to understand, and we're going to break them down. The first lesson, authentic marketing is not the art of selling what you make, but it is knowing what to make. Philip Kotler said that. Lesson number 2, design is the silent ambassador of your brand. And that was said by Paul Rand. Lesson 3, focus on building a great, profitable product or service and a company to sustain it. And that was said by Scott Bedbury. Lesson 4, successful brands are an experience, not just an entity. And that was said by Melissa Bolton. And lesson 5, if you don't give the market the story to talk about, they will define your brand story. These are some very interesting things. And David Brewer said that one. It's very difficult to achieve good outcomes without a specialized group of skills. So small and medium-sized business marketers have got to be almost incredibly talented these days because it's going to take more than the traditional skills. In the past few years, traditional skills are the norm, but it's no longer just about figuring it out, like this thing called digital marketing. You can't just figure it out. You've got to upskill. In fact, it could be dangerous to your business reputation and future revenue. Small business owners may be rethinking their approach to marketing, and you might just have to, and possibly consider a different approach in 2020 and beyond. So let's take a look at these specific lessons and the requisite marketing skills needed to get you to understanding and putting these into effect. First lesson. It's with good reason that a marketer like myself is going to start with Philip Kotler, known as the father of modern marketing. And so we couldn't kick it off without hearing from the boss of marketing. He has made such a legend in the field of marketing over the years that he helps people to understand marketing even to this day. And most of the main marketing textbooks come from him. What does Kotler have to tell us about authentic marketing? Well, simply that it's about understanding what people want. And I'm adding this bit, when they change. For Kotler, the work of marketing begins before you have a product or service. Not you've gone and just designed something and then it's time to sell it. No way. You've got to be able to know and understand what people are looking for. What are their needs? Create a need that they didn't even think they had. There's some core skills you're going to need here. Creativity and imagination is key. Strategy development and even adaptability. So, when we talk about creativity and imagination, we tend to think a lot about our aesthetic sensibility. Brainstorming themes, campaigns, ads, public messages, developing concepts for new products. You want to think of new, exciting ideas to appeal to your clients, to appeal to your target demographic. You've got to have an eye for design and to come up with relevant concepts or products. The ability to think outside the box is key. You also need a sense of strategy development and deployment. Having the right goals, firm goals, smart goals are the heart of strategy development. Many small business marketers jump to tactics first. Some simply give in to the boss, and the boss says, get me more sales, get me more sales. Because of that, they get intimidated and they rarely inject their own expertise or their own thinking to uncover the specific metrics to achieve success. But you've got to map out a strategy for your success, a strategy for your marketing, a strategy for your business. Just like you need GPS these days, certainly when I'm traveling overseas, got to have GPS on my phone, right? Because you want to know where you're going. You want to know the best route to take you there in order to get to where you're going on time. And as we say, in one piece or great shape, right? But it's really important that we look at how we map our strategy as a key to having the right marketing for our brand or our product. And also that it is authentic. And lastly, adaptability. Digital media has transformed all facets of modern life and culture as we know it. There's pretty much nothing, nowhere, no brand, anywhere that's not impacted by digital marketing in some way, shape, or form. I challenge you to tell me otherwise. Navigating this whole facet of digital media is, as a small business, can almost be seen as treacherous sometimes, especially if you don't really know how it goes. How can you continue to build your business while at the same time making sure you're utilizing the latest and the best solutions, you're flexible, you're adapting to new ways, sometimes uncomfortable ways to attract your customers? You want to stay on your toes. You want to be willing to respond to any new information that arises. And COVID has shown us that it changes every day, every week, every month. There's something new happening when you're in a state like this. So being able to stay on your toes and respond is going to be really, really critical as also a part of authentic marketing, because as it relates specifically to COVID, consumers out there are so discombobulated by brands who do not reflect their authentic selves during a time like this, who do not show care and concern for their people. And we're going to talk about that too in a little while. So staying on your toes, being willing to respond, being truly flexible, being adaptable to the structure of your marketing is really important. And once you know what to make, once you believe you have the right thing, it's now time to let what you make work for you. That, my friends, is called the grand design. And that takes us to the second lesson. Design is a silent ambassador of your brand. So who is Paul Rand anyway? I'm sure my colleague at 1 o'clock will be talking to you quite a bit about designs, and perhaps he might even mention Paul Rand. He is known as the father of graphic design, and he was an American art director and graphic designer, best known for corporate logo designs. In this lesson, you want to think about how you're gonna make design of your products or your service work for you. Your core skills here, you're gonna get tech savvy. Some web design is in the mix, okay? Some package design is in the mix. Product planning capabilities come into the mix. And even designing PR, comprehensive writing capabilities come into the mix here. So let's look at these skills. In a world of web design, a world now where just about every business is online, as we were saying earlier, in some form or the other, whether you choose to put it online or others put it online for you. The fact is, a lot of businesses are now 100% online, which means that the impression your website leaves, because you need a website if you're going to be in business, is more important than ever. And how do we leave a good impression? Well, Paul says it, good design. The pro tip here is being familiar or possessing a good working knowledge of tools such as WordPress, okay? This gives a great advantage to today's small business marketers. There's a lot of things about search engine optimization, search engine management that makes people be able to make their website stand out more in the marketplace, get noticed by Google, get noticed by search engine checks. And these are the kinds of things you're going to need to get savvy on in order to be able to master the art of making your website work for you as one facet of the design of your brand or your service. Then there is comprehensive writing capabilities. Now, writing skills such as copywriting, we call that PR, are vital in today's marketing. And it's expected that this year, especially so, when people have got a lot to write to explain what they're doing or not doing during COVID. Writing for the web or for the newspaper, it requires two separate sets of skills. One is the ability to create content that attracts, that engages, and that converts consumers to your space. And the other we mentioned a while ago, SEO techniques, because you want to achieve authority of your site, of your brand, of your industry, okay? And lastly, there's product planning. Product planning capabilities have a number of different stages. From idea to introduction to the market, product planning involves insights, research, testing, development, engineering. And on the side of engineering, this comes with product packaging designs, the look and feel of what goes on the label, the can, the package, tetra, bottle, if it's jewelry, is it sterling, is it gold, if it's makeup, the quality of the texture. There's so much different things that go into the composite of the engineering of a product. And certainly you've got to think about just that. Now, if you're a service, on the other hand, your product is yourself. It's the people in your organization that are delivering that service. So how you design your look and feel in your website, your professional photos, the way you carry yourself, your public speaking skills, if that's your service, how you represent on stage, those are all part of the grand design. And those are skills that you also have to think about as the ambassador of your brand, because that look and feel talks for you when you're not in the room. In the case of the product, of course, you know, so you have to always be mindful of that and quality that it takes to maintain a look and feel that is satisfactory to you and what your consumers want. A good thing about product planning too is that it serves as the basis for future decisions about price, about distribution, and about promotion. And by the way, that takes us to the third lesson. So our third lesson is about focusing on building a great, profitable product or service and the company, the organization, to sustain it. Your company could be all of 3 people, but you have to make sure that you have the right focus on building a great profitable product or service. Because at the end of the day, if it's not great, it's not gonna last. And if it's not profitable, you won't last. So you've got to make sure that it lasts. Scott Bedbury is an American branding consultant. And just as an FYI, he was Nike's advertising director back in the late 80s to early 90s. And then he went on to be chief marketing officer for Starbucks. So he's managed a couple brands, and now he's CEO of his own global firm known as Brandstream. A pretty cool guy to follow. And fairly modern, of course, not as dated as a Philip Kotler might be. Nike, definitely my favorite brand of all times. In fact, in the mornings when I jog, it's about just doing it. You know, forget tired, forget pain, forget hunger. You cannot stop now. It helps that my Nike feels great on my feet and it looks stylish. So I feel good. And when I look at that tick, it reminds me that I am a winner. All of these elements come together to make me the die-hard Nike consumer that I am. But building out this great profitable product or service takes some core skills. It takes decisiveness, it takes data analysis, and it takes good negotiation skills. Let's talk about that. So in today's marketing, it's not only what you put out there to attract customers that counts. Cruz says this in her Cruise Control. It's what you do once they see it and start interacting with it. And that's why the idea of being decisive or good decision-making is an element of great leadership, because it takes you to a path of control of your business, of your brand, and all of these things. Those small businesses and marketers who work with small businesses, who work decisively at removing any barrier between the customer and their business, will be positioned for success in the long term. Small businesses that connect with consumers are gonna win in 2020, because this is the year for connecting, especially when people are so far apart, which is the irony. It's a skill. The idea of being decisive is a skill to interact with customers and to do it well. It's often that interaction requires thinking, a particular thinking on your feet, which calls for confidence, it calls for patience, it calls for gratitude, and it calls for courage. These are some additional skills that make for better decisions, not to mention empathy. We spoke about COVID. This is really key in understanding moments of crisis. And when you put all of these together, they make for better decisions and happier, engaged customers. Data analysis is something you've got to get really skilled at. Unfortunately, there is a shortage of marketers and business owners that are skilled in the art of data analysis worldwide. And even in Jamaica, it's a specialty skill. In digital marketing, every visitor, every view, click, and share is tracked. There's just about so much data now that small business owners are flooded. I'm sure you almost feel like, what am I gonna do with all of this data? And sifting through the data is a challenge. I can only imagine. But marketing requires a great deal of research-based analysis. I often tell my students that marketing is as much a science as it is an art. In fact, I liken the field of marketing to medicine, because like the doctor, the real marketer goes in and diagnoses a problem before prescribing medication to solve. That diagnosis and that estimate of what is happening to the health of a person, and in this case, the health of a brand, is the research-based analysis. And this is what is used to determine what the audience wants and needs. And a lot of careful strategy crafted around that analysis is what really makes marketing successful. You've got to anticipate the potential impact of several alternative strategies or approaches. Sometimes you also have to use your own judgment, yeah? But stay away from too much gut instinct. It's got to be about the data. and lots of big data, and they're out there. Sometimes you have to change course just to factor new insights. And you should be able to draw logical conclusions based on the data that you have. If you can't, go back to the data and figure out what's the next step. Problem-solving skills are essential in order to dissect data and underperforming brands or underperforming campaigns or underperforming SKUs, which line in your product range not working. You've got to know why. And if it was working and it stopped, what happened? What caused the fall off? These are the things that make for understanding and putting out there a great product or service. Lastly, negotiation, usually an undervalued skill in marketing. We're generally not very good at the fighting over budgets, fighting over timelines, fighting over expectations, fighting with designers, fighting with vendors, fighting with camera crew, fighting. Negotiation is tough, yeah? But it's a big part of the success as a professional marketer. And success with negotiation requires you to take on a mindset of your counterpart and consider how you can present a win-win proposal that achieves your goal, but meets the needs of the other party who's involved with you as well. Generally, in the lines of negotiation, you've got to have some empathy. That word coming up again. Listening, persuasive skills are very important. Knowing your competition, knowing your market, identifying what's compelling about your product, setting realistic prices. That's also very important. And when all is said and done, especially during a time like this, negotiation also involves remaining calm. As simple as that sounds, it's really important that you remain calm and be confident in what you have and what you're going to put forward and how you're going to address any situation, especially a situation of crisis. So those are a couple of the key core skills to help you to understand how to focus and narrow in on building great and profitable products or services. Once you've got that and the right organization around to sustain it over time, your brand can move to the next level. And that takes us to successful brands are an experience, not an entity. Melissa Bolton is a brand therapist. She has over 10 years offering psychology-based branding and creative consulting. And she has led brands competing in what she calls, and I love this term, the emotion economy. I'm going to read something from what she said on her website. There are a lot of businesses out there, a ton really. Every time I turn around, there's a fresh crop of people floating in their newfound zone of genius, peddling everything from their time to their wares. Here's the thing, in case you haven't noticed. Originality is getting harder to come by. Authenticity is at a premium because here in this too much driven society, this too much information driven society, everyone is working overtime to try and fit in. But what they don't get is that they're being drowned out by all the other voices and vibes who sound just like them. Which is exactly the reason why brands like Heineken, a brand I'm proud to have worked with and served in Jamaica, gives established reasons to believe. They talk about where you see the arrow on the screen, that is known as their brand in a bottle, or BIAB. And one of the levels of their brand in a bottle is their reason to believe. They list their reasons to believe as world-class, no one can argue with that, world-renowned experiences, and I'm sure a number of you in this call might have seen James Bond flicks, and you know the support that Heineken has given around this film in particular, and how James Bond utilizes it And, you know, it's been all about the experience of Heineken and the James Bond 007 experience. And then, of course, there's the iconic bottle. There's the green. Everywhere in the world, you know, this green is Heineken. And, of course, the famous red star. Now, in Amsterdam, they actually have something called the Heineken experience. And Amsterdam is where Heineken originated, okay? We're going to talk about some core skills to help you along to get to the likes of a Heineken experience over time as you begin to build your own brand. So I had the experience of being on the Heineken experience, and I share a collage of photos there with you today. Some photos that was taken at legendary spots where Heineken was first brewed. You might even see one of my compatriots in that. She's from Panama as well. And there was a lot of things that Heineken had to teach us some several years ago about what is good about being a brand that delivers an experience. There are a number of skills you need to have in this area, but I've just zoomed in on 3. And these are event planning skills. These are social networking, also a part of event planning, and empathy. So there's a site called Social Tables that talks about being an event planner is rewarding, but it can be one of the most stressful. And when it comes to securing a kind of successful path through the events industry, you're going to need a diverse set of skills. That's just the truth. A lot of event planning skills. It takes a great deal of organizational ability. It takes a great deal of networking savvy. It takes resilience. It takes a basic understanding and leaps and bounds of creativity. In the event planning sphere, this is one that brands like Heineken have managed to master worldwide, because no matter where in the world you go, you see iconic looking events, all flanked by their colors, by their brand icons, what is truly indicative of their brands. And this will help you to understand when you're planning events for your own brands, when you're associating your brand with events, whether you choose to do it through sponsorship of events, for example. You want to ensure that in planning this, you're taking a lot of these skills, being organized around your brand, understanding the key elements, being creative, that creative aesthetic sensibility comes into play. You want to understand that you're going to push to get the most out for your events. Very, very critical, because this is what you want to show of your brand. This is how your brand is going to leave that indelible experience on the minds of the consumers. They must come into contact with your brand and go, wow, that brand is just so amazing. You also want to be able to tap into social networking. This is really important too in the experience world, right? Or what Cruz calls the Melissa Bolton calls the emotion economy. All the best experiences are led by savvy networkers. So the emotion economy is heavily people-driven and it's relationship-based. You're gonna need a kind of great network of diverse event professionals. You know, if you're in food, you're gonna need to have links with the raw materials. You're gonna need to know restaurants. You know, if you're into running events, you're gonna need good caterers, DJs, you know, lighting and those kinds of services. I mean, the list is endless. Your network should be wide enough to facilitate all the factors of persons that you need, and you call upon this network to make your experiences ones that your client will never forget. On the flip side, you also want that same network referring business to you. So you've got to ensure that you have a wide and ample social network that you can pull on to sell, to refer, to get services, to make your experience that much better. And lastly, empathy. So empathy is one of the areas that we often don't quite get right. We don't understand what our consumers are going through, and we don't look at things through their eyes. We've got to be able to understand what our customer is going through from their experience. Empathy is key to outstanding customer experience. And when you put yourself in your customer's shoes and see things from their experience, this helps you to understand their needs and then create meaningful experiences and ultimately satisfy their queries, even give them what they didn't even realize they wanted. In social media, we have ways of communicating with each other that defies everything, right? People talk all the time, 100% of the time, there's almost no break, right? Small businesses have to begin to develop protocols to be able to successfully address customers' needs and inquiries. And like I said, in a time like now, when you have COVID, you're gonna see lots of feedback coming back to you. You've got to be open to comment sections or online reviews, what's happening with your brand or your service that people want to know. You have to watch your audience. And as the lead for your business or your marketing, you may not always have the solution, but you can deliver empathy. And that is key because it is a part of the experience. The good, the bad, the indifferent, all holds true. So let's wrap this up with the fifth and final lesson. It's going to be all about the storyline. If you don't give the market the story to talk about, says David Breil, they will define your brand story. For over 30 years, David has been a design and brand identity specialist, and he's won himself 325 awards and has a very interesting nickname. He calls himself the Chief Gravity Defier. I think that's pretty cool. But like what he's saying here, there's something else that Philip Kotler once said that goes in line with what Brea is saying. Kotler said, marketing is a creative use of truth. And great marketing doesn't just describe products and services, it actually creatively speaks to the subconscious human needs. And you do this through great storytelling, and in some cases, what you say in your public speaking. Storytelling is a big part of branding. Once you've figured out the real crux of your brand, you've got to communicate it in a form that people can understand, and nothing is more effective than a good old-fashioned story. People like to listen to something that makes sense. It doesn't matter if it's delivered via the latest, greatest mobile technology, but once it's a story, it holds merit for some people. A story that has a powerful line of what your brand is about and what you want it to deliver for the consumer. Tell your story, tell it well, tell it often, and keep it authentic. Storytelling in marketing works because it engages your audience, it evokes an emotional kind of connection and guides them through their journey of purchase. Whether they thought about it at the beginning or they remembered an element from the story at the point of purchase in the supermarket or on display or online, they're searching and something strikes a chord that makes them connect and remember your brand. Storytelling in advertising, both in the traditional media, television, radio, and certainly online spaces work really well in defining the brand story. And you give them what they're going to talk about so they don't make it up for you. But in public speaking, which takes a little different angle from storytelling, you want to come up with a new campaign or a new marketing initiative, and you're going to likely have to pitch this to clients, colleagues, just about anywhere, and you've got to make a presentation. You have to make it at a meeting in a private setting or a public meeting, maybe it's a town hall, or it could be in the media. You're on Smile Jamaica, for example, on an interview. Some forms of marketing, once they take the presentations into perspective, you're going to have to use these to your advantage. So leverage your ability to speak and represent your brand in a way that tells your story. In those interviews on radio, TV, online, you may blog, that's also telling your story. There are different forms of public speaking these days. It's not just getting up on a podium. I am public speaking right now and telling you about my story. You must, ladies and gentlemen, be comfortable speaking in front of groups. This is going to become increasingly important. And if you can't do it, you've got to have somebody to do it for you. And they have to be available to do it around the clock. And between you both, you should be able to handle on-the-spot questioning, manage presentation software such as PowerPoint and these kinds of things. And if you don't, as I said at the beginning, look for opportunities to hone your skills, your craft, take classes, take workshops, join public speaking groups if you can. Go on LinkedIn, which is a great site for developing networks and also giving you an advantage to speak. Okay, and select classes. Even if you're at school or you're finishing up a course, volunteer to be the one to present, because these kind of things are going to help build you in an area that you may or may not be good at. And once you get good at it, it's a part of your defining of your story. Really, really important. And that takes us to the end of the lessons today. Before we wrap up, I'm going to have another short break here just to find out if there are more comments or questions that you'd like me to address today.
Yes, Suwannee, you've been doing so well. I'm so happy to be part of this session this morning. I personally, I closed my eyes for a few minutes because I'm absorbing. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I'm absorbing. All right, so there are a couple of questions in the chat, but I want to commend Marilyn White, who has been with us, I think maybe from the start of the seminars. When we started way back in April, Marilyn joined, and Marilyn is now in the chat giving advice. So big up yourself, Marilyn. Marilyn is giving advice to the newbies. So big up yourself, Marilyn. All right, so someone said, Amoy Banton said, love the content. What is the standard definition for marketing? And also, how does the steps to good marketing differ from the steps to a brand foundation? You got that, Suwannee?
All right, so the steps to good marketing differ from the steps to?
Steps to a brand foundation. I guess building a brand foundation.
Right. That's a very, very deep question, Amoy. Thank you for that question. I don't think I have sufficient time to answer that question because that could be another hour or so. But let me just give you a very quick overview and hope that it provides the clarity that you're looking for. So marketing, textbook answer, is that suite of styles of communication that you take in speaking about your brand, whether verbal, non-verbal, in writing, and so on. Marketing allows you to reach a multifaceted amount of groups. It takes into consideration PR, advertising, promotions, and all of the selling techniques that are part of sales. Marketing is for a long-term building strategy, which is often the main differentiation between marketing and sales that tends to be lumped together. Sales focuses on short-term wins. Marketing is about building a sustainable future for your brands and ultimately for your company that's founded on these brands. And as you get to steps to good marketing, different from steps to building a brand foundation, in marketing, it's going to be key for you to know a couple things. You've got to, one, know what people want, even if you know before they do. Then you've got to deliver what they want in a way that excites them, that has them salivating for what you have, stumbling over themselves to connect with you, because your brand means so much to them. I can't tell you what I went through to get my last pair of Nike sneakers, right? It's about being able to communicate with those consumers and audience that want to connect with you in a way that holds them, no matter what's going on for you. No matter if you're not necessarily the cheapest, you are offering at a premium price, you're accessible in a niche space, you're not mass market. If you deliver something that consumers want on a consistent basis, and they're willing to go out of their way to get it, you have built the right steps and you have created a foundation for building excellent brands. I hope that helps to, as a top line, address Amoy's question. If she has any further questions on that one, please let me know, Sansio.
Yes, I will. There is another question. What from Vanessa Powell? Amoy says you didn't answer the question fully. So Amoy, here what I'm gonna ask you to do. Send me a private message and I will pass that on to Sue for you, and then we'll see how best we can answer the question for you. From Vanessa Powell, what branding advice would you give to persons selling a service instead of a product?
All right, that's a good one. Thank you for that, Vanessa. So let me tell you, I am one such person who is selling a service and not necessarily a product. And so my product is myself. It's my story. It's how I present myself to the public and who is my market. So from the point of view of advice, the first thing you've got to do is a deep dive. What is it that is unique or special about your product, yourself, that's going to differentiate you from the market, from others who might be offering a similar product or similar service, which is public speaking, moderating, hosting, being a coach. You may have a restaurant service, for example, or other type of service. What is it that differentiates you? You've got to start understanding that and documenting it. And then when you do understand what your key points of differentiation are as a service that you offer, you then begin to build that out as a portfolio so that potential clients can see what you have to offer. And when you've all of that groundwork done, you've got to just do it. You have to exude the confidence. You have to take risks. You have to be prepared to go out into the marketplace strong and determined that you're the best thing since sliced bread. You have something to offer that is unique than what others are offering on the market. And you are going to sell yourself in a confident, poised, determined way with your knowledge, with your experience, with the service details of what you have to offer, and wow your consumers. Oftentimes, it may come with a little bit of risk. It may come with a little bit of, you may be a little shy. You may not know exactly how to answer all the right questions, or you may not know how to address all the needs at one time, but that also comes with experience. So number one advice, especially if you're just about starting out, is don't be too hard on yourself. And as you go along, understand learning is a part of that. In learning, you're gonna fall down, you're gonna fail, you're gonna pick yourself up, and you're gonna keep going.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you addressed a little bit earlier, Suwannee, about, if you can't do it yourself, identify someone to do it for you. Because we find that a lot of persons are shy.
Yes.
And we always say to our clients, there's no one that sells your product as good as you, because you are the one that understand the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into creating what it is that you have created. So if it is that you can't do it yourself, sell it to somebody else who is confident enough to sell it for you. And that will also take some work on the mindset as well. But,
Absolutely. That's spot on, Sancio.
Yeah. All right. So there's another question that I have here for you again from Vanessa. Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome while offering your service, and how did you get over it?
Imposter syndrome. Could you ask her to clarify?
Can you clarify that for me, Vanessa? What is imposter syndrome? One can't live with, no, I'm not sure. It's a different thing. Identity and market.
Could you read back the question that Vanessa had?
The question is, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome while offering your service? I've heard the term imposter syndrome before, but I'm not exactly sure what it is.
So if she has not, has she offered another?
No,
not yet?
No, she hasn't.
Okay. So I am going to assume that what she means here by imposter syndrome is you feeling as if you are mimicking somebody else's product or service, maybe becoming a copycat, for example, and not offering your own true brand identity. If that is what she's referring to as imposter syndrome, then I would say that that one is a little bit personal. It's internal to the individual. And the truth is, the first step in understanding what you offer as a service is your own brand identity, which I spoke about at the beginning, knowing who you are.
All right, so I found out what it is. It is a psychological pattern in which one doubts one's accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud.
Well, what you find with these kinds of, it's natural actually, because as you start up your business, you almost feel a sense of fear overtaking, especially if you're going into uncharted territories, if you're going into new waters for yourself, if you are trying to feel your place in the market. Some persons jump right into doing a business from school. Others go through corporate careers before they take the risk and plunge into this space. The truth is that your knowledge that you gain over a period of time, which are a mass of your successes and your failures, help to strengthen who you are. And the truth is, there's no more authentic than that. You have to be real with yourself, because people can determine if you are not being true to yourself. That comes out over time. And once you're true to yourself, my thinking that I would share with you is that you will translate that truth about yourself and your brand to the consumer. It's natural sometimes to question or to doubt your abilities, especially if you see others in the market who are doing an exceptional job, leaders in their field, and you wonder if you can stand up to that. You wonder if you have what it takes to get to the next level and to become an established brand. But it starts with your own ability to push aside the fear or embrace the fears and dig deep into what you can do. Go into the space of you come out of the comfort zone, you go into the fear zone, and you try to get what you can out of it, which takes you into what is next called the learning zone, and then it carries you into growth. Now, it's easier said than done. There's, I mean, even for me, there's still a lot of fear. You know, can you do it? Will you make it? Can you survive a crisis like COVID? But truth is, you never know until you try. So
that's right.
Keep pushing.
That's right. And I mean, now that I understand the definition of imposter syndrome, I think we all experience it from time to time. But it's as Suwannee says, it's just about you pushing past that fear, either stepping on the fear or pushing past it. But you've got to get over it and do what you need to get done. All right. There are quite a number of comments just basically thanking us for the session, the positivity, love, just basically commending you, Suwannee, for the presentation this morning. And I don't see any additional questions. There are no hands. So I'm going to wrap it up here and just extend thanks to you again, Suwannee, for having come this morning and share with us. Just want to let persons in the room know that, as usual, the presentation will be available on our JBDC Jamaica page on YouTube. Just go on and subscribe so that you will be notified when the new presentations are added. We have all the presentations in the JBDC webinar series from April up until today available on the YouTube page, as well as our In Concert and Entrepreneur Journey sessions. So you can take a look at those at your convenience. Suwannee, Amoy Banton is here saying that she would love to get in contact with you. So Amoy, hear what
I was just about to say, Sansio, I was going to ask you to provide me with Amoy's contact details, because believe me, she asked a powerful question and it takes a whole lot of breaking down. So we all can research what is marketing, but understanding those steps to governance of marketing and good brand foundation, we would be here for another half an hour at minimum. So I want to ensure that we can sit and talk through that.
Amoy, if you could just send me your contact privately, and I will pass that on to Suwannee. All right.
Thank you for that, Sancho.
Yeah, man. In the meantime, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We are so appreciated because we understand that there are many, many other platforms that you could join on a day like today, both internationally and locally, providing the same amount of value. And so we're grateful. Suwannee, you dropped some nuggets this morning, isn't man? It's really appreciated. I'm happy that I got a chance to be a part of this presentation. I learned so much. And so again, thank you on behalf of JBDC. I got Amoy Banton's number. So let me just take this and I'm going to send it to you right now.
That sounds great. I look forward to talking to Amoy. And also, thank you, Vanessa, too. I hope I answered your question. Know that you educated me, too, because education goes both ways. Never heard of the imposter syndrome before today. So thank you for that. And the ability for us to learn from each other is also important. So I enjoyed that own experience today, and I hope what I shared was of value to you as well.
All right, so I sent the information to you in the chat, Suwannee, but I am going to send you an email with it just in case you don't get to see it.
No problem. Sounds good. So as we wrap up, guys, because I know we're well over an hour, I didn't put this video up here because that's another 3 or so minutes long or 5 minutes long. But if you do get a chance to go to Paul Robinson's site and click on this link, you will see a very interesting recap video of effective marketing strategy. And it's one of the ones I recommend. It touches on a lot of what I covered today. It's on YouTube too. So if you just type in effective marketing strategy, Paul Robinson, I'm sure it will come right up and it will be easy for you to look at. As we recap this morning's session of leveraging brand value, couple of things just to make sure that you have these top of mind. Positioning your brand in the market space is key. You have to understand where you want your brand to play in the mind of your consumer. Your target strategy, whether it's demographic, psychographic, behavioral, are going to be really important in understanding consumers of existing and new products that you want to target. And differentiating yourself as a strategy is going to be truly, truly critical as well to be able to set yourself apart in the noise, in the clutter, and be able to stand out in today's too much information-driven world that we live in. Have your reasons to believe. Is your product Jamaican? Is your product the first? Is it the latest? Is it the hottest? Does it have the best product attributes? You know, there's so many different reasons to believe these days. Make sure you have yours and they're clear. Understand leveraging the value of your brand and why that's important. Giving you the opportunity to extend product lines, brand extensions that can offer, of course, benefits of efficiency, benefits of extending, coordinating product lines so that you have nice portfolio displays on your website or on the point of sale, supermarket shelf, wherever you're offering your brand. And remember today's 5 lessons. Be authentic, use authentic marketing. Design is your silent ambassador. It talks for you when you don't have anybody talking for yourself. Focus on building great products or services. Successful brands are an experience and aspire to get there someday. And lastly, define your brand story and define it well. Don't leave that up to others. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for having me here today. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. There are my contact details. It was my pleasure speaking to you about leveraging brand value.
Did you hear me clapping you a while ago?
I did.
Okay, fabulous, fabulous presentation. Thank you once again. And thank you everyone for having joined us this morning. As I said before, all our sessions are available on our YouTube channel. Our name on YouTube is JBDC Jamaica. Just type it in and click the subscribe button and you'll be notified whenever a new presentation is uploaded. This presentation should be uploaded by tomorrow morning. So until I see you again, hopefully some of you at 1 o'clock today for the power of the logo. See you next week. Thank you again, Suwannee, and everyone have a great rest of the day.